Have you ever looked at your bank account balance and wondered where all your money went? I'm Alex, and on this channel, we teach you what you need to know about being a grown up because adulting shouldn't suck. In this video, we're going to talk about 4 different ways to track your expenses. These are the most commonly used methods that are going to help you stay on track and successful with your budget. So, why do you need to track your expenses? Well, because tracking your expenses on a regular basis helps give you an accurate picture of how you're actually spending your money each month. If you don't track your expenses, then you're not going to know where all your money's going. You're also going to run the risk of failing to stick to a budget. And then, if you can't do that, you're probably not going to end up reaching any of your money goals either. And that's not what we want for you. The first method for tracking your expenses is by pen and paper. And here's how it works. You start by writing down all of your monthly expenses in a notebook. For your reoccurring bills, you write down who you owe the money to, the amount, when it's due, and when you paid it. For other expenses, if you're using cash, you're going to have to hang on to the receipt until you get back to your notebook, and then you can write it down. If you're not a cash person and you typically use a debit card, like I think most people do now, you can look at your bank statements and then get all the necessary information from there and then put it in your notebook. You can label all of your expenses for the month by different categories to determine how much money you spent in each area. Things like groceries, gas, coffee, bills, utilities, whatever. Once you've determined what categories you want to divide things into, you can easily label them by using different color highlighters for each category. I know I used this method for a long time and it worked great for me. It does take a lot of time, and sitting there and going line by line with different colored highlighters on my bank statements drove me nuts. For like pink highlighters for gas and yellow highlighters for food and whatever. And then I have to add it all up. And at the end of the month, I'd figure out okay, here's how much money I spent on gas. And here's how much money I spent on food. Yada, 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 going down the line. And it took a while. And it sucked, but it was effective. And I was very thorough with what I was doing with my budget. There's pros and cons to every method. Now, the pro of pen and paper is that physically writing things down requires an active brain, and active brains are really helpful when you're dealing with money because it forces you to think and reflect on the information while you're writing it down. So while I was writing it down and going, line by line with the different highlighters, I would realize how much money I was wasting by eating out or going to fast food or, buying too much stuff. There was just trash that I didn't really need in my life. It was in my face when I had to go through it this way. The cons of the paper and pencil method are that it's time consuming. Having to write everything down takes a lot of time, and the more time something takes, the easier it is to fall behind on it. And then you've got receipts. They're easy to misplace, and then it's also easy to forget about small cash purchases, which all these different things can lead to inaccurate tracking. The second method for tracking spending is the envelope system. This tracking method requires you to make all your purchases with cash in person. You can still set up your auto pay for your fixed expenses like your rent, car payments, or whatever, but the money you spend in person is supposed to be with cash only. And here's how it works. At the start of every month, you put cash into different envelopes labeled with different category names. Groceries, entertainment, eating out are the 3 most common categories that people tend to use for their envelope system. So, for example, you would take your envelope labeled groceries with you when you head to the grocery store to do your shopping. When your grocery envelope is empty, your spending on groceries stops. Voila. With the envelope system, your money is essentially tracking itself. The pro of this method is that it's a powerful way to track your spending because you're physically watching the money leave your envelope, which inspires a whole new level of responsibility. When you break a $100 bill, there's a lot more of an emotional response to giving a cashier that $100 compared to swiping your debit card. And this emotional connection to money is proven to help people second guess their purchases and overall spend less money. Now, the cons are mainly centered around the inconvenience of cash only. I mean, who wants to go inside the gas station and prepay at the register? Or who likes counting out and keeping up with coins? What happens if you lose the envelope? Plus, with the rise of ordering things online, cash isn't always an option. The third method of tracking your expenses is using a spreadsheet. Some people are spreadsheet fanatics, and they're going to talk to you about the perks of spreadsheets until the end of time. And if that's your personality, well, then this method is definitely for you. The biggest pro with spreadsheets is that once the formulas are set up, the math is done. The con is that you have to manually enter your expenses. If you already spend a lot of time in front of a computer, spreadsheets might be your thing. If not, then this method might feel more like a hassle or a headache because you have to wait until you get back to your computer to add it to your expenses. The last method, which I believe is the easiest way to track your expenses, is using a mobile budgeting app because we got these things everywhere we go. The most popular app on the market right now is the Mint app, which it's free to download and it connects directly to your bank accounts. And you shouldn't worry about connecting it to your bank accounts because it's owned by Intuit, who also owns TurboTax, QuickBooks, and CreditKarma.com. The Mint app is totally safe to use. It incorporates multiple security features to help protect your banking information. Now, every time you swipe your debit or your credit card, because you can link both, it'll track and categorize how you spend your money, and you can easily customize your budget with different categories like gas, restaurants, coffee, groceries, utilities, whatever, and then get alerts on how you're doing with your weekly status. Now, it doesn't always categorize everything 100% perfectly because it's not 100% perfect, but it's easy to go in and correct those transactions that weren't categorized the right way. Now, if Mint isn't your style, there's a dozen other options out there when it comes to budgeting apps, and we're going to link a couple options in the description below. So be sure to check them out and decide which one works for you. But we bring up Mint because it's owned by Intuit, and it's proven that it's got a lot of security features that are built into it, and they got a lot of money behind it, backing it, which I think makes it safer than some of the smaller companies. The pro of using an app on your phone is that you get real-time updates on your money and your spending. Helps you stay on budget. Now, the only real con that I can think of is that if you use cash for your purchases, you got to go in there and you got to manually add them, and it doesn't always categorize everything perfectly, so you have to fix it every now and then. But the key thing to remember is this. You can't set up your budget and walk away, even with an app. An app doesn't control your spending. It just monitors it, which means it's still your responsibility to make sure that you don't overspend and blow your budget. So as a recap, the 4 methods for tracking your expenses are paper and pencil, the envelope system, a spreadsheet, or a mobile phone app. No matter what method you choose, you have to make tracking your expenses a habit if you're going to win with money. If you aren't watching where your money's going, you're always going to be wondering where it went. Ultimately, the more time-consuming and difficult it is to track your budget, the less likely you are to actually use it. But when you put in a little bit of effort and you use the right tools, you're going to go from having good intentions to actually making your financial goals a reality. So figure out which method you like best and then stick to it. So if you like this video, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. In the comments below, let me know which kind of method you think is going to work best for you.